Hello and welcome to Heart Standards Friday morning briefing. My name is Joel Sked and I'm joined by my colleague James Kearney. How's it going, James?
Aye, very good. Can't complain. Looking forward to another game at the weekend.
Good. Yes, you go into it on a much more positive note there after a win on Tuesday, which is which was a big result. Yeah, so we've coming on just to talk about the latest news for everything Hearts. So there's been a few things happening, especially this morning and yesterday, just with the injury situation and confirmation that Aidan Denholm has signed a new deal, keeping him at the club until 2026. That was confirmed basically about 10 minutes ago. Hearts put out a statement, and Stephen Naismith said, "We've been really happy with Aidan's development since we came in. I worked closely with him during our time together on the B team, and his potential was evident. What he's done since is worked hard and learned from the coaches and his teammates, and that together with his talent has got him to this point. There's a big few months for Aidan, and knowing his character, he'll strive to improve week by week to be successful as he can be at Hearts." Joe Savage added, "From speaking to the coaching staff, it's clear that Aidan's made a big impression since coming into the first team picture, so he's thoroughly earned this new deal. The work to build a pathway from academy to first team never stops, but Aidan has proof that the opportunities are there for those that really want it. New contracts are high on the agenda, and with Aidan's and Cammie's option being taken up last week, it shows that we're on the right track." So what is your initial views of Denham's new contract?
Yeah, I think it's a good bit of business. It's basically everyone, Obviously, he's played in sort of fits and starts this season. We've seen him come off the bench a couple of times in Europe and in the league. And he's always acquitted himself fairly well, which I think for a player of that age, let's remember, he's still a teenager. He's only 19, to play, particularly in Europe, to play those games. And also, the fact that the coaching staff are willing to throw him into those games. I think that obviously says a lot about, the guy's temperament and his ability as well. So I think that's got to be encouraging. I think as well the fact that, like Naismith alluded to, that's a player who he has worked with in the B team who's now getting an opportunity in the first team, which is, this is exactly why the B team exists. This is exactly why the coach side exists. It's so that players can get those senior minutes under their belt and then make the jump up to the first team. So it's good to see that there is some sort of pathway there, because I might be wrong, but I don't think there's been too many players so far that have come from the B team and then actually managed to get into the first team squad. So,
James, I'm going to break it to you. There's not been many youth players at all made it into the first team over the last few years at Hearts.
Oh, exactly. And like part of that's also because the way that Hearts are working the transfer market these days, they're signing a lot of players and they're spending money on them, and it does make it harder for young prospects to get into the squad. So again, just that little bridge is nice to see,
Yeah, and it should be added that it's since in the last couple of years, I think changes have been made to the kind of structure of the academy. Obviously, Frankie McAvoy came in as the head of the academy. He's obviously now part of the coaching team, and now Andy Webster is in there. When Joe Savage came in, I think there was a lot of talk about players who were younger, so at the time, like kind of 13, 14, 15, they had a lot of hope for. For example, we've seen James Wilson. We've been able to keep him despite there are a lot of interest from down south. The same with Gus Stevenson. So I think there are players there who are 16, 17 who have got a lot of potential. I've really liked Rocco Friel. I've watched a bit of the B team this season and some of the 18s, and Rocco Friel has really stood out for me as a right fullback. And I think it's important for them that they see Aidan Denholm and his progression into the first team and getting a new contract, being trusted in a big game like home to Rosenborg. Yes, I think there was a couple of loose passes that put under pressure, but he is someone who wants to get on the ball, and even if he has a mistake, he'll still look to get on the ball. And one of the big things I noticed for him with Denholm early on was how vocal he was on the pitch, in that he would be telling more experienced players where to pass it. He'd be demanding the ball. Those are all really encouraging signs for, as you said, someone who's just 19 and not had a lot of first-team experience. And then you add in the story of Denholm as well. I think it's really interesting one, the fact that he basically said he got told in Lorium that he would be leaving at the end of the season. Then Naismith brought him back in because, again, they have that relationship from the B team. And now it's Now it's interesting to see how he's going to develop and kick on, because, like you said, he's been fits and starts. He's been on the bench more often than not recently without getting too many minutes. Again, it's probably sensible. It's been a difficult time for the team on the pitch, and maybe taking him out that firing line, looking for more experience, is maybe the more sensible approach until it kind of settles down and you give him maybe a better platform to showcase his talent. And as we will get on to talk about, the injury situation that currently is not the greatest, so there's every chance that there'll be opportunities coming down the line.
No, absolutely. I mean, that should also be pointed out. That's part of the reason he ended up playing, for instance, against Rosenborg was, also injuries to Beningame, Neuenhoff still getting up to speed. There were Harings that also had an injury at one point, so we did need bodies in that area of the park, so that's also why he's come in. But I think you make a really good point, though, about the fact that it's good for Denholm, but like you say, the people who are a couple of years below him, a couple of years behind him in Hearts' academy, you're right. It's so important that they see that if they hang around at Hearts, they will get that opportunity, because we see it throughout Scottish football at the moment when you get talented players, talented teenagers, who are maybe 15, 16, 17, and then they get snapped up by clubs down south who can offer them 10 times the wage and better all these facilities and world-class coaching and all that kind of stuff. So I think it is important to say that just as a matter of principle, to show that if you come to Hearts, if you progress well through the academy and the B team, you will get that opportunity. And again, that could help Hearts hold on to some of these younger guys that you're mentioning who otherwise could be tempted into moves elsewhere. So again, I think it's a move that it makes a lot of sense. Again, the fans want to see Hearts producing their own players and getting them into the team. Like you say, it's something that's been lacking a fair bit over the last few years. So I think that, again, I think it's just all around it's pretty positive. And I think we probably need to see a wee bit more of Denholm until we can draw some firmer conclusions about him. But you're right, though. I think that it wouldn't be a surprise in the coming weeks if we do see a bit more of him because of injuries to other players.
Yeah, it's an ambition of the club. I know this is strong ambition is to have that pathway, as Joe Savage said, into the first team. Hearts are a club that want to produce their own young players, and to try and have a core who came through the club, understand the club, get the club, and it has been a bone of contention for fans that we not had those players, but it's a step in the right direction, positive sign. And you look at the players who are out of contract at the end of the season. You've got Peter Haring, you've got Andy Halliday, so a couple of players who are centre midfielders. There's at the moment, you would without knowing anything firm or just basically just speculating, just looking at the Halliday's game time and Haring, and the fact that he's kind of been in and out of the team, that you might think those two might move on at the end of the season. Again, opens up space for them, and that's so you've got then you'll have Neuenhoff, Devlin, and Beningame. It's so yeah, I think, like you said, I think it's important that hopefully we get to see him over the course of the season, draw firmer conclusions. But again, he's only 19. He's been given a contract to 2026, so he doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to be in the first team straight away. He's got time to develop, and I think that length of contract gives him that stability to build on that. Because I don't think he's the type of everything I've heard about him. I know someone who worked with him at Berwick Rangers. He raved about Cammy. About Aidan Denholm at Berwick Rangers, and he is the type of mentality that seems this contract will only spur him on, kick him on to improve and get better, and really kind of force himself into the first team.
No, definitely, and like I say, I think the length of the contract itself is clearly an endorsement. Naismith obviously likes the guy. If he's working in the B team, like you said, he was set to leave the club this summer until Naismith decided to bring him back in. So it's obvious that Naismith rates him, and obviously you look at Naismith's playing career, and he's played alongside some great players over the years at various clubs. So you'd like to think that Naismith knows a good young player when he sees one. And for him to speak so glowingly of him and to offer such a long contract, it does say that he's got faith in him, and he does think that in the future he can go on to become an important player for Hearts. Because let's face it, he's 19, so he's not going to play every week. He's likely probably not going to get a sustained run in the team either. But as long as he can keep, coming on in games, showing little flashes, getting used to the reality of playing in the Scottish Premiership, obviously it's got its own idiosyncrasies that you need to get used to. So all those little things, I think that as long as he keeps doing that and keeps progressing, and then just, as I say as well, as long as he takes his opportunities when he gets them, and like I'm sure we're about to go on to talk about, he probably will be getting them in the not so distant future.
Yeah, so that brings me on to the injury situation and touching on tomorrow when we head to Ross County, head to Dingwall to play Ross County. There's a chance he could be involved, maybe off the bench, just because the news today. So Barry Anderson even he reported on the injury situation yesterday and provided another update today on Cammy Devlin. Stephen Naismith confirmed that he will be a doubt for the match in Dingwall because he came off. We asked him about on Tuesday when he came off at halftime against Kilmarnock. His presence was missed in the midfield in the second half, and it turns out that he wasn't feeling well, and there's still an illness, so he's a doubt. And then there is a number of other issues longer term. So you've got Craig Gordon, Craig Halkett, both likely but aiming to be back in November. Nathaniel Atkinson, Alex Cochrane and Barry Mackay are longer term, probably 6 to 8 weeks, the three of them. Is there any others that I am missing short term?
Oda as well.
Odan Tagawa, yes. So I think Tagawa's, and it seems like an outside chance of making the game this weekend. Oda seems like he could miss this weekend and the Edinburgh Derby next weekend. So it's far from ideal. Yeah.
There's not too many options at the moment, and that's right across the pitch. I guess that's maybe one small blessing in disguise, if you want to call it that, is the fact that the injuries are fairly spread around. It's like a couple in the forward areas, a couple in midfield, a couple in defence. At least it's not the entire defence getting crocked at once. So I suppose there's always that. But yeah, I mean, like you say, that's 5-6 players who are maybe first team, maybe in the strongest 11 that won't be available for the next month or two. So that is obviously a concern, and I think that we are going to see the likes of Denholm and perhaps some of the other younger players in the squad maybe having to come off the bench and fill in for the last 20 minutes or so of games just to give the other guys a rest. Because when you look at the obviously we'll have our predicted starting lineups coming out for the Ross County game later on, and
almost right themselves.
That's what I was going to say. They pretty much do. Yeah, I mean, you look at the defence, you think, all right, yeah, that's pretty much taken care of. The midfield, especially if Devlin's out, all right, yeah, I've got a pretty good idea of that. That'll look, So again, on the one hand, I guess it makes life easier for Naismith in that there's not too many big selection dilemmas to make. But on the other hand, it's like you do worry about the fact that if there are any more injuries, if there are a suspension or two, what happens then? Yeah. So I think you need everyone to kind of be on their best behaviour and maybe not chucking themselves about as much as they'd like to, because, as I say, right now it's just about all right, but one or two more and then it starts to become a real problem, I think.
It's good that we've got the international break coming up. So we got Ross County on Saturday, and then Hibs at Tynecastle the following Saturday. And it's important to get through them, and gives you a couple of weeks to hopefully allow some to put their feet up. Hopefully, get others making progression. But like you said, you're looking at it, and in terms of starting players, Craig Gordon, Craig Halkett. Would definitely, in terms of tomorrow, like Craig Gordon, Craig Halkett, Cammy Devlin if he misses out, Nathaniel Atkinson, you say all four would be in the starting 11. Alex Cochrane, you'd imagine as well, and then the argument with Barry Mackay as well. We've spoken about how Barry Mackay has been a miss, just he got a lot of criticism last season because people didn't feel he'd reached his potential or the standard he did the previous season. But and you look at what he brings the team in terms of the way he carries the ball, where he dribbles it, and creativity, is that he's always capable of producing something. And Hearts have missed that, and it does mean that there's been more responsibility and pressure on other players.
No, definitely. I think we've seen that in recent weeks. But I mean, certainly one guy who accepted that additional responsibility recently was George Grant in the win over Kilmarnock, where we saw obviously he struggled a bit for game time this season. He's not always played in his preferred position at number 10. But I thought he was excellent at Rugby Park on Tuesday night. I'd expect he's probably done enough to hold on to his place in the starting 11, even though it's a big call to drop Boyce. But I think that Grant, I don't think he could have done much more in that game, to be honest. I thought he was excellent. And then, of course, the other player again who came into that game was Alan Forrest as well, who I don't think the final ball or the end product wasn't quite there against Kilmarnock, but certainly the way he was. The way that both Forrest and Vargas were staying wide, driving at their fullbacks, and there's a couple of nice wee sort of wee reverse balls into them, like around the edge of the box to get a wee bit of space as they drive in. So I think that while there could have been a little bit more from Forrest, again, he's another one who I think came into the team and who's not played much football, but he's ended up coming in and actually contributing really well. So again, he's another one that could well hold on to his place in the starting 11 again. And that's what Naismith needs at the moment. He needs these guys who maybe haven't been starting every week, guys like Toby Siddick as well, to come in and do a job. And certainly against Kilmarnock they did that. And now it's just a case of seeing whether or not they can continue to do so until these guys are back.
Yeah, that's one thing. If I was Stephen Naismith and I was speaking to the players who maybe you call fringe players or squad players, and that you'd be making the point that there's this injury situation has provided an opportunity for those players to make a case for their involvement. Talked about Forrest and Grant, and then you've got Lowry as well, who's been on the fringes more recently. He came off the bench against Kilmarnock, obviously scored a fantastic winner, and you're just wondering. I was of the view that at the moment sometimes Lowry's probably a better player off the bench. When the game opens up, but there's argument in that he'll be so full of confidence and flying after that goal, having made a strong impact, that you'd be very tempted to start him in Dingwall.
No, definitely. It's obviously it'd be perfectly understandable if Lowry does then get his chance after his cameo the other night. Obviously he's only out in the park a couple of minutes, but he made the most of them very well. I do really like Lowry, and I do think there's certainly a lot of potential there. Obviously, we heard Naismith after the game talking about him, saying he's one of the most exciting young Scottish players he's ever worked with or played alongside. Which again, coming from a guy with Naismith's background, that's quite high praise indeed.
And Naismith is not the type of person to just give out credit easily.
Yeah,
exactly. Credit like that as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly. He's not. He wouldn't. Yeah, just ridiculously big up his players for no reason. They need to do something first in order to prove it. So yeah, I think he's one who will certainly be champing at the bit for a start. I mean, I don't think I think the last game he started would have been, was it Motherwell or Dundee? Perhaps it was a while ago now. It's certainly been a few games since he's had a place in the starting 11. He might well come in, but I think that it's probably more likely to be Forrest. I just think Forrest is maybe a wee bit better suited to the county game. I think that I think County's going to pose a really interesting problem. I mean, I was kind of digging into their stats a wee bit earlier on today before coming on, just to have a wee look at them. And I think that, as far as I can tell, I think beating the first line of the press is going to be really important, because Ross County, only St Mirren pressed the ball in the opposition half more than Ross County do. So and we saw against St Mirren that became a very big problem, that Hearts couldn't play out. They were too slow at playing it around the back, and they couldn't then penetrate that first line of the press. Whereas, so I think County are going to try and do something a lot similar. I think it will be, but I would expect that Hearts might have a bit more joy, just because I look at County's forward players, I don't think there's too much pace there compared to St Mirren. So I think that, that does buy you an extra half second or whatever on the ball when you are trying to turn out and get around that. So I think that, and then once you do beat that first line in the press, you've got to be trying to look to the wingers to try and drive down the line and occupy that space, try and stretch defensively. But so I think for that reason, I think Alan Forrest is a good choice for this game on the left. I think he's got that directness, he's got that pace, he's able to dribble and drive with the ball a bit more naturally than someone like Lowry does. But having said that, if it gets to 20 minutes to go, half an hour to go, it's still level, or say Hearts are trailing, you need something a bit different. Lowry's an absolutely wonderful option to have, I think, in that he's a bit, he'll play on the left, but he'll basically play there as a playmaker rather than a winger. And sometimes that is what you need to break down a stubborn defence. So I think that, I would expect Forrest to probably hold on to his place, but certainly if Lowry was included, I don't think you'd get too many supporters grumbling about it.
No, definitely not. And I think it's a good point about Ross County in there, what they have. Yeah, I think only really Simon Murray has got the pace for Ross County. Brophy's mobile, but I don't think he's necessarily quick. But you look at the other makeup, the other forwards. Jordan White is we talked about him on Tuesday. He's an effective striker. He's a beanpole. He's tall. He's big. He's awkward, but he's not going to run in behind. Jan Danda will again. He'll get on the ball. He'll look to try and play make, and then they essentially play two fullbacks as wing backs if they go with a back three. So yeah, there's, like I said, there's not a lot of pace there, and I would be tempted, if Forrest does play, I would be tempted to play him on the right and Vargas on the left, and have Vargas maybe getting in beside Shankland and combining with Grant, getting close to Grant and Shankland, and whereas Forrest maybe stays a wee bit wider, because I think Forrest, I think fans get a wee bit frustrated with his end delivery, and if you've got him on the left, he's not as effective crossing in on his left. That's why I would maybe be tempted to go have him down the right and swing a ball in from there. Where I think obviously Grant should pick himself, Shankland picks himself, Vargas. Yeah, are you looking at Benny and Neuenhoff as the midfield too?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I think that obviously with Benny still getting back up to fitness, but we saw against St Mirren that he can, again, in terms of beating the press and that first line of the press, he was good at that. He was maybe the only guy that was doing that in Paisley. So again, you'd like to think that makes him an easy selection in there. I would probably, if Devlin was fully fit and all that, I would have probably had Devlin in there alongside him for this one. But I do think that if he does miss out and it is Neuenhoff, obviously, we saw him against Kilmarnock midweek. Probably his best performance for Hearts since he's come in the summer. And Naismith was raving about him after the game. He's saying he's the best player in the team and all that kind of stuff on the night. So I think that obviously he's in decent form and want to carry on that momentum. So I think that even though chances are Devlin might miss out or might not start, I think that midfield pairing is probably still quite solid, because I think you've got, like we say, Biringame, who did play well in his last start and is able to do things that should prove useful in this match. And you've got Neuenhoff, who's a player who's in form, who just want to carry on that momentum. So I think that that midfield pairing likely picks itself, particularly if Devlin's not quite 100%.
Perfect. Well, before we finish up and I can go get some breakfast because I'm starving, we may as well just talk about some of the stuff that's on the site or coming up on the site. You had a piece yesterday on George Grant, having been impressed with him after the Kilmarnock performance, and kind of just looked at his own display.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we spoke to him after the game, I thought it was really interesting, the fact that he was talking about how he was close to leaving Hearts in the summer. He had other offers. He'd had chats with Naismith and knew he wasn't going to play as much as he would like. And obviously, he's a footballer. He wants to go and play. For whatever reason, he decided to stay. The move didn't work out. And, now he's actually shown, I think that game has certainly provided Naismith with a lot of food for thought, in that he's providing an alternative to Boyce, who don't get me wrong, Boyce is a fantastic player, and but there are obviously concerns from some that him and Shankland are a wee bit too similar to be effective, and I think we have seen that at times this season. And just having someone else who can come in and offer something a bit different in that role, that's got so much value just in and of itself. Never mind the fact that someone who can come in and actually not only offer something different, but then offer something different and then play really well doing so.
Yeah, and I think with Grant more so than Boyce, he can. It might be easier to vary position, that you can drop him deeper and essentially play 3 in midfield, or kind of invert it from going a defensive midfielder with 2 in front, rather than having 2 and then Grant as a 10. So he gives you that variety, that flexibility. Before he moved, I watched a lot of clips, a lot of his games from his time in England, where he had 2 really, really good goal scoring seasons from different positions, and he was a player that seemed really exciting, and it's really, really keen to see him get a lengthy run in the team and kind of show what he can do. And if that is, then it's perfect. You've got another creative midfielder outlet who can play in different positions.
No, absolutely. Creativity in midfield has been one of the problems that we've seen this season with Perhaps. That has been something that Naismith has been looking for a solution to. And, again, going on Tuesday night's evidence, Kurt Grant might well be that solution. Like we say, he offers a bit more movement, I think. I think he gets himself around the park a bit more than someone like Boyce does. But he's also still got a good range of passing as well, that he can play those switched balls out if either Forrest or Vargas or whoever it is out wide is free. And he did dovetail quite nicely with Shankland as well, I think, and that, if Shankland dropped deep, Grant would press on and vice versa. So I think that, as I said, I think even if he hadn't scored, I think he'd still have done enough to justify a place in the team for this weekend. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him, and I think that the next month or 2 could be really interesting, because if he does get into the team and establish himself and get a good run and perform well, then he could well be at Hearts for the next wee while. If he comes into the team, plays a couple of games, doesn't go well, and then drops back out, wouldn't be any surprise to see him leave in January. So I think it's going to be a big few months for him, and it'll just be really interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, absolutely. And another piece that went up this morning, I did a feature on Cammy Devlin. He signed the deal, say, earlier on in the week. Naismith, there's some comments from Naismith there, but I spoke to a coach who's working in European football just now, who I know was a big fan of Devlin from his time at Wellington Phoenix. He's tracked his progress, so he gave me a bit of insight in terms of how he's evolved as a player. Used to be a dictating midfielder, which I don't think Hearts fans would be. I think Hearts fans would be quite surprised by that role in a team. Now he's added different strings to his bow, and spoke about how there's one area of his game that he can improve to make him even better. Is long range passing, and there's interesting stuff about how there was interest from a European club during the summer, in terms of they were seeking a certain midfielder, and Devlin was one that considered, and also the fact that Devlin, there was teams in Scotland who had the opportunity to get Devlin. I believe he was recommended to Hibs while he was in Australia, but it was Hearts that got him. And Devlin spoke about wanting to be here long term, so he certainly suggested that by saying that he's looking to sign a longer term contract, and you can tell he's really enjoying it. I think there's really space for him to grow as a player. And yeah, it's just typical that he's going to miss out tomorrow after writing that. In terms of other things, there's a bit about the League Cup draw. Hearts' poor form in the League Cup and against Rangers at Hampden, never beaten Rangers at Hampden in a cup competition. And there will be some stuff from the press conference this afternoon going up on the site, more likely this evening. And we're hoping to have a stats analysis piece coming up from from a contributor this afternoon as well. So be sure to check out heartstandard.co.uk. You can subscribe from as little as £1 for 6 months, £12 for 12 months. Give it a go, see what the content is. Hopefully you enjoy it. But that's us for now, and we'll be back tomorrow prior to the Ross County game and after the Ross County game. So enjoy your weekend and hopefully it's a Hearts win that makes it even better. I'd never know where to hit this end stream as we just sit here awkwardly.